Warning: this podcast may contain graphic and triggering content. Please listen at your own risk. Each individual struggle is different, and everyone's recovery and healing journey is different. Please reach out to a certified medical professional if you need help. Welcome to episode 19 of Stomp the Stigma, the podcast aimed to fight the stigma surrounding mental health through education, awareness, experiences, stories, resources, and the vulnerable truth. Joining me to Stomp the Stigma today is Jessie Dollimont. She is the communications director and a certified music therapist for JB Music Therapy right here in Calgary and the Treaty 7 territory. She's here to talk about what music therapy is, what it involves, and how it can help our physical, emotional, and mental health.
There you are. Hi, Elena.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Well, I just want to say thank you for joining me today. I'm so interested in music therapy and I'm so curious, so I'm super excited to hear all about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and really, it's one of the great things to me that's come out of the pandemic has been a surge in podcast activity, and what a great learning tool that is, and a great way to sort of connect people, and it's really exciting to be part of this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree. I actually started this podcast in January of this year, so it hasn't been that long, but it's been so much fun so far. So you work for JB Music Therapy, and I have never heard of music therapy until very recently. Has this been around for a long time?
It has, yeah. Music therapy, I guess from a historical perspective, really kind of, music as a modality for healing, music as an experience geared toward healing and community building is, and wellness and self-expression is, of course, nothing new, right?
Right, yeah.
And certainly music therapy as a field, or music therapists as, care providers, didn't invent it by any stretch. Every culture, every civilization has its music and its own ways of using music for community building, for healing, for ceremony, and so the field of music therapy, as I'm a part of it today, I think it really got a big start. I guess kind of the claim to fame is the Second World War, where musicians were working in hospitals, playing music for folks who had experienced shell shock, which we now understand as PTSD, right? Mm-hmm. Working with veterans on a variety of things, right? Just kind of boosting mood, promoting relaxation, helping to sort of anchor those folks who were experiencing those symptoms of shell shock or PTSD, anchoring them into the moment. And so, from there, it was sort of, I think folks in that setting went, okay, we're on to something here. Mm-hmm. This really specific and intentional application of music in this specific environment is yielding a very clear result, right? Like something is happening here, and it's having an effect on these folks, and the effect is a positive one. And so from there, you sort of see the evolution of the field of music therapy. One of the things that I remember when I started working for JB Music Therapy, in some of our documentation, I came across this sentence: music therapy is the study and practice of how music affects people. And I think the field of music therapy looks at that and practices that. Folks working in the field of music therapy practice that all the time. They explore music with others. They experience music with others in the context of a therapeutic relationship, and really look at and dialogue about and explore, how does music affect you? And how do you want music to affect you, So By definition today, and this is directly from the Canadian Association of Music Therapists website and their definition of music therapy is a discipline in which credentialed professionals, MTAs, use music purposefully within the context of therapeutic relationships, which is key to support development, health, and well-being. So music therapists use music safely and ethically to address human needs within cognitive, communicative, emotional, musical, physical, social, and spiritual domains. So that's the big definition. And to give you a little more detail, music therapy might include the application of all kinds of music therapy interventions, songwriting, instrument playing, improvisation, movement to music, singing. And then even within those different kind of applications of music and musical elements, there are different really specific techniques and interventions that music therapists with different training and experience might employ. We use a combination of verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as musical communication, of course, to interact with our clients and to work towards their individualized goals. So you'll see us in healthcare, you'll see us in education, you'll see us in private practice and community settings, in institutional settings, and even in corporate settings. And sometimes we work independently. So you'll see lots of solopreneurs or sole proprietors, music therapists in the communities that have their own practice, and they enter into different spaces and provide their services. You'll see companies like ours, who we are an employer of music therapists. We've got a team of 17 at the moment here in Calgary at JB Music Therapy. And then you'll see music therapists, employed by bigger agencies like AHS, like education boards, right? Throughout the province of Alberta and all over Canada and the US and all over the world. Looks a little different everywhere, of course. And music therapists often do interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary work. So they work with other professionals who might be working on similar goals, right? In my own practice, I do a lot of work with occupational therapists, lots of work with speech therapists, right? We're working on communication and self-expression. We're working on fine motor stuff. We're working on quality of life. Sometimes we work with physiotherapists to promote movement and use music to support some of those, whether they're fine motor or gross motor goals that our clients or patients might have. Sometimes we work with recreation therapists to develop programming or to provide, a little bit more targeted one-to-one and specific musical intervention with those professionals or their programs. And sometimes we work directly with nurses and doctors and are referred directly to folks by them. It really depends on the setting that you'll find a music therapist in.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That sounds so cool. And I can't believe that I've never heard of it before.
It's funny. Music therapy, I suppose, we think about the Second World War, and that's sort of, I guess, more formal development, right, of the music therapy profession. Mm-hmm. At least in my own studies, that's kind of, I was taught this is where we kind of grew our roots. But it's interesting when I'm connected with folks, Indigenous folks in the community here, drumming in community is ancient, yeah. Right? Yeah. Folks have been experiencing music as a therapeutic medium. Folks have been using it as a healing agent forever and ever and ever. So, you've probably heard of it. You've probably encountered it. And certainly, more and more all the time, music therapists, as we know them today, and by the definition that I sort of shared with you today, we're seeing them integrated more and more as we learn more about health and wellness and the many facets of health and wellness that exist. It's not just your annual checkups and your daily walk. All of those things are so important. But what we're learning when it comes to development and health and wellness is that there are so many layers of our persons that require attention and that need nurture and that need to be addressed and acknowledged. And for so many folks, music is really this like organic way that we do that. And so as music therapists, our goal is always to support folks in doing that more, doing it purposefully, doing it intentionally, and optimizing that in whatever way our client might need.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I mean, music is a part of everybody's lives, and everybody's probably experienced music therapy in some form or another, just not under that, I guess, distinct label of it being therapy.
Yeah, and I think people use music for their wellness, right?
Yeah.
And people use music, oh gosh, for so many things. Music is a part of identity development in adolescence, right? I mean, our music preferences are so important to us in that stage of our life, and those music preferences and musical memories, they stay with us through the lifespan.
Yeah.
They become a part of our molecular makeup, mm-hmm. As children, we use music for language acquisition, and play and socialization and all kinds of spatial reasoning, right? Like every facet of development, music can really can touch on almost all of it. And so I think, when it comes to music therapy and really specifically related to mental health, and what you do, the mission of your podcast, I was looking at some of your previous episodes and the work that you've been doing with this podcast, the Stomp the Stigma, what a powerful name, and the thing that for me, that I love about music therapy and why I am so, why I love being a music therapist is that, when we're feeling anything, any specific way, and we choose a song that reflects it back to us, that gives us a sense of control or safety, we put on our preferred music and we sit there, that music will affect us and hold us. And at the same time, it won't ask us to change how we feel, or won't require, that we feel or are or show up any specific way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? I love that.
And that is where I think, in terms of a mental health perspective, the powerful potential of music therapy lies. Mm-hmm. And for folks who have had experiences that might be really challenging to articulate with words, music therapy can give an opportunity to sort of tap into some of those areas, tap into memories, tap into feelings, and quickly, and without the necessity of words, even at least just at the beginning, and for a lot of folks, that's a really great point of entry. And so music therapy is another way of accessing the benefits of therapy, because there's all kinds of therapy out there, and there's no one size fits all, right? Some of us CBT, some of us psychotherapy, some of us EMDR. There's so much out there. And so, knowing that music therapy is out there, and hey, maybe it's the right fit for you, whether you're a musician or not, right? Whether you identify as a musician or a musical person, it truly doesn't matter, because like you said, music is a part of every single one of us, and every single one of our lives and our stories have music as a part of them at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you don't need kind of musical inclination for therapy to be beneficial for you, but is it more beneficial for someone if they are already musically inclined?
I would say no. I would say it's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different. And every person's experience of therapy is going to be different, and every person's experience of music therapy is going to be different. Certainly, as a musician, you might come at music therapy a certain way, and I can't necessarily speak in blanket terms when it comes to the benefit to musicians or non-musicians. There's some interesting research out there around, the benefits of music for musicians versus quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes right now for all of you listening, musicians versus non-musicians, right? And regardless of how you identify musical or non-musical, there is certain circuitry in the brain that is stimulated by music, regardless of how you identify musical or not. There is a pleasure response in the brain to music always, right? Feelings of wellness, goodness, calm, right? It's music releases oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin in the brain, promoting, an overall sense of well-being and stability. In non-musicians, and the study to which I'm referring, they looked at brain activity in folks watching an orchestra. And for the folks that were musical or quote unquote musicians, there were certain parts of the brain that sort of were more active that were related to identity. So like, hey, I also play that instrument and I relate. That's a part of my identity. And certain even parts of the brain motor function, in terms of motor function that were active, like, your brain goes, I know that movement, like the bow of the violin or the banging of the drum. Like, my body has felt that movement before, right? You kind of your brain mirrors what you observe as you experience music. What this research indicated was otherwise across the board, the experience is pretty consistent. Music creates a sense of well-being, connectedness, pleasure. It piques our interest, it holds our attention. And so in that regard, the benefit is going to be the same. I'm a musician, I came at this profession as a musician, and then, my studies and all that stuff in music therapy came after. And I found that being a musician didn't necessarily make me a better music therapist, or it didn't necessarily, I think it gives you a different lens perhaps, but I think a lot about one of the great gifts that being a music therapist and a musician gave me is just sort of this letting go of a real need for mastery, right? And being able to focus more on experience, experiencing music and feeling music and sharing music, and understanding that those things have immeasurable value that have nothing to do with, your level of experience as a musician. Being able to just interact musically and so freely without any assumptions about like how it ought to sound,
right. Yeah.
And I think that in my own experience, that's been really liberating for some of my clients who are musicians, who have musical experience, who might say things like, my voice doesn't sound how it used to, or, this instrument doesn't feel in my hands how it used to. And, we're always reframing, it might feel different. And is different necessarily better or worse? It's just different, we're reframing and re-exploring and re-experiencing your relationship with this part of yourself.
Yeah.
And that experience translates into all manner of things, reframing, re-exploring, re-experiencing, which are all, really important parts of people's healing and coping processes.
Right. Can I ask how you got into this field, like going from a musician to becoming a music therapist?
Yeah. I grew up playing lots of music and come from a family of musicians. There's lots of music around when I was growing up, so I didn't really have a chance of doing anything different, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then, went to school and studied music performance and spent some time traveling and playing and recording and working as a musician, and of course loved and still love that work and that and doing that. And to supplement my income, I became a music teacher, right? So I was teaching some voice and some piano. And I met a gal, a good friend who was studying to become a music therapist in those early stages of me teaching some music classes for young kiddos. And her experience really intrigued me. And that kind of planted the seed. And then down the road, I wound up teaching, and I encountered a couple of kiddos with special needs, kiddos with autism, kiddos with cerebral palsy, just offering kind of community music programming, and went, I want to know how to do this better for these kids, Yeah. How am I going to adapt this programming to make it inclusive for them? And then found music therapy. And that was it. And so then I applied and went back to school, and I thought, okay, well, this will be cool, this will be something else that I can do. And I don't really know if I knew what it would be. I really didn't know. Yeah. Like, I just didn't have a hot clue what it would be like, and how much I would love it, and how much it would change me and what I wanted to do. I am not one of those stories where it's like, I always wanted to be a music therapist. I always knew. It almost happened by accident. And the more I studied it, and the more I, experienced my practicums and got to know my classmates and got to know people working in this field, I went, oh my goodness, like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I was hooked. I'm hooked still. Yeah.
It sounds like so much fun, but at the same time, like, such a rewarding job.
Yeah, it's both. And of course, too, sometimes it's incredibly challenging work. Like any other kind of therapy is.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you're working with folks at their most absolutely vulnerable moments, and music has such an effect on people, and can listening to music, creating music. I mean, there can be such really raw and visceral and emotional responses to music, and being with folks in that, and trying to create an environment that is safe and that holds them, and just being with them as they work that through, is not without its challenges, for sure. And it is incredibly rewarding. And I think part of that is, like, music itself is literally a reward. Like, your brain perceives music as an award, a special treat, which is really great. It makes it such a powerful tool, and such a beautiful point of, it's just such a beautiful way to get to know somebody, is that they share their music with you, which is something that is so personal and cultural and community oriented and unique, and so it's something for sure that myself and so many of my colleagues, we talk about it a lot. You never take it lightly, that people are willing to enter into music making with you and share their music with you, because it's a really special thing, and we learn so much about each other musically, and about ourselves too.
Sounds amazing. Like, with any form of therapy, you deal with some of the darker parts of people's lives. Is it hard for you to kind of leave that at work when you go home?
Yeah, of course. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not, right? That kind of thing, I think, it takes practice.
Right.
Those boundaries take practice, and just really trusting, like, hey, today we showed up together in therapy, and we did what we could do today, The other important thing to know about music therapy and any type of therapy is that, like, therapy is a mutual process. Music therapists and therapists of any persuasion don't just show up, like, and save the day. Our clients are doing the heavy lifting. Our clients are doing the work. They are moving. They are composing songs. They are showing up every week for therapy. They are focused. They are remembering. They are processing. They are having very intense sensory experiences sometimes, right? Like, music is is a full-on sensory experience, and so, you know, that too is important to remember, that it's a mutual experience, and it's not up to you to carry it all the time. Right. Just like that's why folks often seek therapy, right? Is, you know, I want to offer this up to you, and share this with you, and share the emotional load, or whatever, the physical load, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes yes, sometimes it comes home with you. Sometimes certain things, really specific moments, right, they stick with you, and I think that's just a part of being human. I don't think there's a therapist alive that would be like, no, I never think about it.
Yeah. You'd have to have no emotion for that, no feelings or anything. Yeah.
It's funny, one of the things that sticks with me the most is the music. Like, I might see somebody somewhere, like at the supermarket, out of the corner of my eye, and I'm so terrible with names, which is, I'm here to admit it. I'm so terrible with names sometimes, but I'll never forget what your favorite song was. You know, like, I'll see somebody and go, oh yeah, that's, you know, loves this song by the Eagles, or like, but it's funny that way. Hey, music really does burn itself into our memory.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't remember your name, I don't remember anything about you, but I remember your song.
I know your face and I know your song.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, since you deal with music all day, do you find yourself, like, with less of an interest in music in your spare time now that you deal with it so much at work?
I went through waves of that.
Yeah.
When I was an intern, and I can talk more about that, sort of our training procedures and processes and stuff. But when I was an intern, I was also playing a lot. I was performing a lot, and which I loved. I loved both of them. And by the time that period was over, my brain was like, no more music ever. It was lots of like comedy and podcasts that I was listening to in my spare time. And as I get kind of further into this and find myself kind of striking a balance between like the different facets of who I am and how music is a part of my life, I find myself listening to music more or craving music more. I also have a partner who's a musician and who loves music and who is a music listener. I think even more than me, more than I have ever been. And so that's good for me, because sometimes I guess I've gotten crusty about it at times, and living with him helps to keep me kind of fresh and still remembering that I love and appreciate and need music too, just for me. And I guess it's like with anything you love, you go through waves, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to go back to the music therapy part of it. Would you, in terms of mental health and mental illness, do you think that music therapy could be kind of the sole technique that someone uses to kind of heal themselves? Or do you think it kind of needs to be paired with something else?
Again, speaking kind of blanket terms about something as complex as mental health, and folks who are living with mental illness is impossible to do. Mm-hmm. I would say that considering music therapy as one of your options is important, and it's our hope as music therapists, here at JB Music Therapy, and at a provincial level across Alberta, across Canada, everywhere, music therapists want you to know music therapy is an option for you. Mm-hmm. And if you've never thought about it, maybe you should, because it's one of the things that's out there that might help to support your goals and meet your needs, in whatever way, right? My own experiences working with clients who are struggling with their mental health, who have different types of mental illness, whether it be depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or BPD, whatever it is that you might be, PTSD, right? Whatever it is that you might be living with, In most cases, it takes a village, right?
Yes.
There's a team of people.
Yeah.
There is your doctor. There is your community treatment program. There is your talk therapist. There is your the person who helps with diet, and there's your spiritual life, and there's, mental health is so complex. We know that housing security, food security, financial security, we know that racism, there are so many things that impact one's mental health, and every person's experience, every community's experience is incredibly nuanced, and music therapy is out there too. And so, what are the things that music therapy can specifically do for folks that are living with mental health concerns? Music therapy can help decrease stress and anxiety. Music therapy can help with attention and focus. Music therapy can give folks an opportunity to participate in an inclusive social environment, right? Like to experience community, to come together and make music and experience community in a safe and structured environment. Music therapy can improve capacity for learning and attention. And a really big thing that music therapy can do, it can boost confidence and feelings of self-worth. I am creating music. I am a musical person. I am a part of this musical interaction, right? My music, I'm sharing my music with other people. I had a client once say to me, it's just been so nice to sit here and talk about something other than my illness.
Yeah.
It's like, what about all of these other parts of who you are? What about your culture, your community, your memories? What about the music that's on your iPod that, helps you get from A to B? What about the music that helps motivate you to start your day? What about the music that drowns out the negative self-talk? What about the music that reminds you that you're not the only person that's ever struggled with A, B, or C, right? One of the most interesting things about music is how quickly it affects our brain's emotional systems. These pleasurable emotions. It produces responses in our amygdala, which we know can be a really active area of the brain in folks experiencing, anxiety and, symptoms of PTSD. This brain modulates our emotional networks, right? And the hippocampus, closely connected, centers on the emotions kind of released during bonding and attachments. So where folks who are living with mental illness might feel, might be hypervigilant, might be really stressed, might feel really lonely and isolated, music can tap into those areas and can say, hey, what about this though? These parts of your brain can feel other things. They can feel connected. They can feel calm, right? And focused. The brain's response to music isn't just embedded in the here and now, right? It's part of our relationships and our past and our memories. And the other thing about music therapy and a music therapist that is a little different than sitting around and listening to music, or listening to music with friends, or which again are important and have benefits, is that a music therapist will get to know you in the context of a therapeutic relationship, and will support you in determining what are your most important music preferences. What are some of the sounds or songs or musics that are really triggering for you, right? What are your specific goals? What are your symptoms in some cases, right? And music therapists will know how to incorporate different tempos, genres, tones, rhythms, melodies, lyrics, whatever, that will support your desired mood state, that will support your goals. And there are certain elements of music, in particular rhythm, right, that have really powerful potential to change mood states. And so music therapists go through rigorous training around, okay, well, how do you meet somebody where they're at? And how do you notice and assess rhythm? And how do you enter into, these different facets of music with someone to their maximum benefit, all while ensuring that you're doing that, safely and ethically. So that's, in terms of, I guess that's not a yes or no answer to your question. I don't think it can be a yes or no answer.
That's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, wow, some of those things sound like they would really work for me, then you could contact a music therapist,
Yeah.
and or you could, maybe like go to a group music therapy session, or, you could go to the agency, an agency that you're closely affiliated with that supports your care and your health, and go, what about music therapy? Can you help me find it? Here in the province, the Music Therapy Association for Alberta can really help. No matter where you are in the province, can help you find a music therapist. We at JB Music Therapy are here in Calgary, and we are not alone. There are lots of music therapists all over the province doing incredible work, and all across Canada too. And everywhere. I recently had a chance to chat with some music therapists from the States and from Europe as a part of this research study, and it's just incredible to hear what music therapists are up to.
Oh, that is so cool.
Thanks for tuning in today, you guys. This is part 1 of a 2-part episode, so tune in next week as I talk more with Jessie all about music therapy. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Feel free to reach out at any time. You can contact me on Instagram and Facebook at Stomp the Stigma YYC, and you can email me at stompthestigmayyc@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts. And if you or someone you know would like to come on, I would love to have you. Share your story, speak your truth, and together we can stomp the stigma.